On the 27th of April, 2025, Liverpool lifted the title, their 20th, the one that felt inevitable from October. Arne Slot, in his first season, had done what Klopp spent 9 years building toward: dominant, relentless, statistically one of the best Premier League campaigns in a generation. 3 months later, one of their players was dead in car crash incident, and just 3 months after that, Liverpool lost 4 matches in a row. So the question nobody wants to answer out loud is this: how does a champion, a genuine wire-to-wire champion, collapse so completely, so fast, that by April of the following year, they are fighting just to finish in the top 5? By the time this video is finished, you will understand exactly why Liverpool's implosion was not bad luck, not one bad transfer window, and not the grief alone, though the grief was real. What happened to Liverpool between April 2025 and April 2026 was a system that had no margin, and the moment the conditions changed, there was nothing underneath it. Start with the number that should stop you cold: 9 points. 9 points dropped to goals conceded in the 90th minute or later, the most of any team in the Premier League this season. Not bad fortune, 9 separate moments where Liverpool had done enough and then hadn't. Now look at what was happening before those moments. They ranked 2nd in the league for shots, 2nd and 16th for conversion. That gap between how much they created and how little of it became goals is not a slump. That is a structural problem wearing the costume of a slump. Plot every Premier League team on a chart of pressing intensity across this season. Liverpool's number dropped from 177 pressures per match to 141, a 20% fall. The largest decline in the division. Every other team held steady or improved. 1 dot fell off the chart. Then there is the Champions League. Against PSG in the first leg, Liverpool did not register a single shot on target. Not one. The first time that had happened to them in the competition since 2021, and in that same match, Alexander Isak, the man Slot chose over Salah, managed 5 touches in 45 minutes. 5. That is not a player having a bad game. That is a player who was not ready to be on that pitch. By the time April came, they had lost 10 Premier League matches, 5th place, 16 defeats across all competitions, 24 points behind where they had been at the same stage of the title-winning campaign. And they had become, this is the number that defines the season, the first champion in Premier League history not to win any of their first 3 matches after clinching the title. The evidence was there before the season even properly began. The scatter plot tells you what they produced. What it cannot tell you is how a champion loses its shape so completely. And the how is where this becomes genuinely worth paying attention to. Liverpool's title was built on a specific kind of pressure: high, coordinated, relentless. It required everyone pressing in the same moment, trusting that the man beside them would cover the same ground. That system has an invisible requirement. Everyone has to be available, not just physically fit, mentally present, tactically sharp, willing to run into spaces they know will be empty. Diogo Jota died on the 3rd of July 2025. A car accident in Spain. He and his brother gone. No football analysis can prepare you to write that sentence. And no football analysis should pretend to fully explain what it does to a dressing room when someone is gone like that. What it does to the rhythm of pre-season. What it does to the unspoken confidence of a group who believed they had figured something out. But the mechanics were already fracturing before the grief arrived. Trent Alexander-Arnold had left, Luis Diaz had left, the 2 players who had given the system its width, its tempo, its unpredictability on both sides. Their replacements, Frimpong and Wirtz, came with talent and no fluency. They had never played this system, and the system had no patience for learning. Jamie Carragher, watching the PSG second leg, put it simply about Isak. He's never even played with Ekitike before. One sentence. It described the entire problem. Liverpool were fielding combinations that had never been tested under pressure in the match that defined their season. Then the injuries arrived. Leone and Bradley, both out for the season with knee injuries. Bajcetic, not a single minute played. Endo and Ekitike, both gone for extended periods. A squad that had looked complete in May was unrecognisable by December. The pressing fell apart because pressing requires legs, it requires trust, and trust requires familiarity. When you lose the familiarity, the pressing becomes something else. Effort without coordination, running without a plan. And that is what Liverpool became in the second half of this season. The simplest version of this story is that Slot made a catastrophic error. The benching Salah for the PSG second leg was the moment it fell apart. And if you watched Thierry Henry that night, players like Salah are not just regular players, they are game changers. They've earned the right to be trusted in the biggest moments. That argument is not easy to dismiss, but it is too simple. Salah, even when he played, was not producing the same influence. And the system that Slot ran in the title-winning season had already reached its limit structurally, physically, in terms of personnel. The PSG match was a symptom. The hardest thing to accept is that Liverpool might have collapsed regardless of who started that night. Champions don't usually lose their shape in a single decision. They lose it in 100 smaller ones over months before anyone notices it's gone. Anfield, the second leg against PSG. Liverpool needed 2 goals. The crowd gave them everything the crowd can give. That specific Anfield noise that has undone better teams than Paris on colder nights. For a moment, it was possible to believe. Then Dembele scored and the illusion dissolved. Watch the midfield in the 15 minutes before that goal. Gravenberch and Mac Allister, 2 of the best central midfielders in England 8 months earlier, were unable to set a tempo, unable to prevent transitions, unable to do the one thing that Liverpool's system requires above everything else: control the space between the lines. PSG weren't pressing them. PSG were simply waiting for Liverpool to misplace a pass, to lose the ball in a transition, to create the moment PSG needed. This is exactly the kind of match that answers the entire debate. Not whether Salah should have started, not whether the formation was right, but whether this Liverpool, this version, in this moment, had the clarity and the composure to win a high-stakes European knockout tie. They had the desire. That was visible. They did not have the precision. And this season has proved, again and again, that desire without precision does not win matches. The system had no margin, and PSG found the gap. So, how does a champion collapse this fast? The honest answer is that they were never as stable as the table suggested. The title was real, the dominance was real, but it was built on a specific combination of players, fitness, and psychological certainty, and every one of those 3 things came apart inside 12 months. There is something in this that goes beyond football. The moment a system reaches its peak, the conditions that produced it begin to change. The personnel age, leave, get injured. The opponents adapt. The internal belief that felt permanent turns out to have been contingent on things nobody named at the time. Liverpool won 20 matches and called it a structure. It was, in part, a moment. The system had no margin. That was always the question nobody wanted to answer out loud. Now, we know.